Hey, how's it going, YouTube? My name is Jeremy, but I go by the author name J Moon. And today I'm welcoming you to my new channel or video series, whatever I'm going to call it. I'm trying to figure it out. Basically, I am putting out a book this year. I'm publishing a book. Book of the Anointed is what it's called, and it's coming out the end of April 24th. And I wanted to make this video due to the overwhelming response I've had, since telling people that my book is coming out. A lot of people have asked for advice. I found out a lot of people that I know always wanted to write a book or a play or a story, but they just never had the time or they've been too busy. So I kind of wanted to put this video out to give people some insight, some tips on some things that I found out along the way, to also promote my own book, Book of the Anointed. It's coming out next month, as well as unveil my cover. So first things first, let me just give you a brief history of my own writing history. I've been writing since forever, like ever since the second grade, when my cousin told me, hey, if you're gonna tell a lie, you might as well go ahead and tell it. Ever since he told me that, I just been telling amazing stories. I think the first story that I actually ever sat down and wrote was for like some sort of standardized test for elementary school kids in the second grade. Miss Truesdale, shout out to you. You started my writing career. I want to say that was one of the first stories I did, and I just remember doing a lot of poetry and writing contests in elementary school. I think I got published in like 6 or 7 books just off that alone, just submitting some of my poems and some of my short stories. I've always been a comic book fan. I've always been a fan of Batman, the animated series, X-Men, Spider-Man, you name a man, I was a fan. I loved all that stuff growing up, and that kind of influenced me on into high school, where I actually started writing my first full-length manuscripts. A manuscript is a novel that hasn't been published. And so now, after college, I have like over 12 manuscripts. And can you believe it? I just never thought about publishing them until this year, when I decided, hey, I want more people besides my, usual readers that I have online and some of my friends to hear and read about these amazing stories that I have. So that's my short history. Now, what I want to do with this video series, I don't know if I'm going to do a vlog every Wednesday or if I'm going to start a whole new channel. I want to just give you some insight and information that I've picked up along the way. Because this year, ever since I've taken my writing seriously, I've literally gone to several writers' conferences. I've been to several writing classes. I've searched all over the internet, looked high and low, and low-key, I've spent a lot of money just to hear the same thing. And so that's why I'm making this video for y'all, so y'all can save a little bit of a coin. Like, I'm not regretting any of it, because I've had some great experiences. Like, I went to this authors conference for African American writers, the AMBC Awards in Atlanta. I met some amazing people, some amazing authors there. Most of the authors there are self-published, which is what I'm choosing to do with my first book. And I've also got to meet some authors who have gone the traditional route of publishing, which I'm also in the process of doing for another book. I keep you posted on that. And then also in another video, I want to explain to you the difference between, self-published route versus traditional publishing. But anyway, going to all these conferences, meeting all these writers, who are self-published, traditionally published, a lot of them have been saying the same thing. And I think I'm going to give you 3 small, tips to help you on your writing journey. Is number 1, if you want to be a writer, you gotta write. You gotta read a lot and you gotta write. And the thing of it is, what people don't understand is your brain itself is a muscle. And just like, if you're bodybuilding, you have to work out every day, you kind of have to write every day. And the more you read great books, the more you're going to be inspired to write and to tell your story. And let me just tell you, no matter what your story is, there's somebody out there who wants to read it. Trust me. I met some great authors and writers who just, pull stories from their own personal journeys or something that's been in their head. No matter what story you have in your head, someone wants to read it. And that brings me to my second tip. I know what you're saying, it's easy to say write and read when you got time, but not many people got time for that. Like, I know a lot of people, you're in school, you got a job, you got kids, you got a man, you got a girl, you got stuff you got to do. But the thing of it is, if this is something important to you, you have to make time for this goal. You have to make time. You have to make this a goal, and you have to set it for yourself. For me, during this going to Atlanta and to some of my several writing classes, I've got to meet so many people who have done this, who have published 5 or 6 books. Many of them have lived different lifestyles. Like, one that sticks out to me that I can always remember is this lady. She has 3 kids that are like age 4 to 8. And she has a job, and she has a husband, and she's on her 4th novel. So I'm like, we was asking, like, girl, how do you have time to write a book? And you know what she said? When she putting them kids down at 8 o'clock, she going to sleep with the kids. She wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and from 3 to 5, she writes. And that's really what it is. If you're consistent with it, if you set a time schedule, if it's just 1 hour a day, just 30 minutes a day. Hey, most people, we got iPhones, iPads, Androids. If you're on your way to school, you can start, typing something on your iPhone. There are no excuses, not to get this done. So that's my second tip. And my third tip is to expose yourself. I can't tell you just how much, meeting other writers and authors and people who are starting this journey with me and people who've already been there, how much that has made me want to write even more. Like, it's ridiculous. And the thing of it is, there's so many ways to meet other writers. You can go on meetup.com and you can find a writing group. You can look for local writing classes in your area. Like, I live in Bethesda, and I didn't know there was a whole writing center. It's a small school called the Writer Center in Bethesda, and they teach writing classes all throughout the day, different schedule. And that was like really my first, get my toe in the water of meeting other writers. I joined a writing class because I wanted to, better my writing. That's another thing you have to realize too. Writing is a craft. You're always going to evolve. You're always going to learn more, and you're always going to improve your writing. So get into writing classes, meet different people. Then also you have to think about, there are these big writer conferences. AAMBC for African American writers in Atlanta happens in June. The Writers Digest conference in New York, it happens every August. Those were the 2 that I've been to. And I met so many writers, and I've heard so many amazing stories. So you just have to get out there and put yourself out there. I gave this advice to other people, and there are some people who were intimidated because they haven't written a thing. And honestly, if you haven't written anything, you just have a story in your head, that's the best time for you to go, because you don't want to start a story and get on the wrong path on it. One of the things that's the biggest tips I would say I've learned from my different writing classes and conferences. This is one of the things that I pay money just to hear 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times again, is to write an outline. No matter what type of story you're writing, you need an outline. There are those people, who don't need an outline. They call them pantsters. They get an idea and they just start writing, and they ride the story by the seat of their pants. That's fine. But for most of us, if you just write a story and you just don't know where you're going, eventually you're going to give up on that story. Like a lot of those people, they start writing, and after the second or third chapter, because they don't kind of know where they're going, they sit it down. Next thing you know, a month goes by, 3 months go by, then hey, it's a year, and you still haven't finished writing that story. Think of an outline as a map. Y'all know me. I am directionally challenged. If you told me, Jeremy, go to the mall, I'm still going to get on Google Maps. And your outline is Google Maps. It's showing you where you want to go in your story. I'm going to teach you how to do outlines in this vlog video series on my channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, for now, those are the tips I want to give you. But let's get into the cover unveiling of my book, Book of the Anointed. And here is my cover. Isn't it amazing? Y'all, ain't it, don't it look lovely and wonderful? Let me tell y'all, when I first saw this cover, I did this. And it's no lie, because I work with this artist named Jay Clark. I found him on Redsea.com. That's also going to be an interesting vlog, because there's so many different ways of meeting different illustrators and as well as editors too. And I found him. I was lucky to find him, and we went through back and forth, you know, a couple different edits on the cover. He threw some ideas, I threw some ideas, until we finally got this one. And this one was actually a compilation of some other ones that he gave me. Like, I like the hair of the kid in this one, I like the pose in this one, I like that one background, I like the letter in this one. And until we finally brought it together, and I really love it. Now, Book of the Anointed, my first book, coming out April 24th, is a young adult dark fantasy. For those who don't know, dark fantasy is typically like a fantasy like Harry Potter, but it has, you know, elements of horror and fright, kind of like a classic Stephen King. I describe it as Boys in the Hood meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because there's not really many coming of age stories for young black men, but some of my readers describe it as the Compton version of it. And basically the story is about a young boy named Jaden who hears this voice of this sentient being called the Creator, who tells him to save this child. And once he saves this child, he comes across this demon, and now he enters this dark world of vampires, demons, and monsters. And he learns that he has been called to be a warrior to slay these monsters. He's one of the anointed. And the Book of the Anointed itself is a codex of over 1,000 different demons and monsters. To me, this book, I wrote this book as a love letter to horror. It's a love letter to the movies I love, but they don't love me. Like, until recently with Get Out, most horror stories, the black man, he's the first one that died. Y'all know this. The black man's the first one that died. So I kind of wanted to do my first, I made it, you know, it was a conscious decision to make my first book something that's horror and fantasy related, because during my travels in some of these conferences, I've been told that really black people don't read fantasy because it's something that, you know, we don't have the imagination to conceive. And I know that is a lie. We see that it's a lie with Black Panther, with Get Out, and with this whole renaissance of television and media for persons of color. I definitely want to be on the forefront of that. So that's why I'm releasing this book. And I hope you guys enjoy it. If you love fantasy, if you love vampires, if you love demons, if you love creepy and campy, like, the book, it has its scary moments. I don't want you to be too afraid. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, Jeremy, J Moon, I don't get down with too much of the scary. Listen, there's some good moments in there too. You have 4 or 5 different characters of different ethnicity. You have, you know, black characters. You have Asian characters. You have some LGBT representation. Diversity all over the board. And really, for me, this is not really just a book for persons of color. If you love dark fantasy, if you love vampires, if you love those type of stories. Because for me, I've seen every vampire movie and story there is. And if you're like me, you've seen a lot of vampire stories, you need to read this story, because the vampires in my book are totally different. They're not totally different, but it's a new take on it. It's a fresh take. It's something that you haven't read before. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below to go ahead, pre-order Book of the Anointed. It's coming out next month, April 24th. Go ahead, slay that button. Go ahead and slay that subscribe button. Until next time. And oh yes, before I leave, I cannot leave without giving a shout out to all my precious Moonies. I love you guys for keeping me inspired, and for all your support. It means the world to me. Till next time, everybody. J Moon, I'm out.